knew something was off the second my badge didn't beep the first time I scanned in. Thought maybe I'd just hit it wrong, but that slow blink of red? That was the company's way of whispering, "We don't need you anymore," before I even opened my damn email. The hallway to my office felt longer than usual, like the floor tiles were stretching beneath my feet. I hadn't even set my bag down when the notification pinged. Subject line, organizational realignment. I clicked, heart rate climbing. 7 sentences, no greeting, no sign-off, just, "Your role has been deemed redundant effective immediately. Please clear your desk today." Arial, 11 PT font, cold as freezer burn, no meeting, no handshake, not even a "thanks for your service." 22 years of spotless ops, gone with the same energy they used to deny lunch reimbursements. They didn't even CC HR, just me and the abyss. Before I go on, real quick, if you're one of the 97% of people who listen to these stories and forget to subscribe or tap the like button, please do it. It helps more than you think, keeps us telling stories they don't want told. Anyway, I didn't make a scene. That's not my style. Let the young bucks throw tantrums and walk out with middle fingers in the air. I just started packing. Plants, framed photo of my dog, the old mug with the fading System Whisperer print. Everything fit in one box. I kept my head down, but I could feel eyes on me, most of them pretending to look at dashboards, but curious, like watching a ghost float past. Only Steve from facilities dared to whisper, "You okay?" I nodded, lied. "Just a reshuffle?" I waited until the floor cleared for lunch, then I unlocked the terminal under my old desk. The one nobody ever touched, not IT, not the interns, not even me, unless I had to. It ran cooler than the others, always quiet. Inside, behind a couple dead-end directories and encrypted decoys, lived a protocol I wrote back in 2012. During the Great Crash, they called it. Our systems were going down like dominoes, and no vendor patch could stop it. So I built my own fix, Thread 0, a backdoor heartbeat that kept our core ops pulsing when everything else collapsed. Nobody asked me to do it. Hell, nobody even knew it existed, but it saved our ass back then. Today, I flipped it off. One command line, no ceremony, just a quiet snuffing of light. The system didn't blink. Not yet. That's the thing about infrastructure. It dies slowly, like a forest starving from the roots up. They wouldn't notice for a day, maybe 2. By then, I'd be long gone. I left my keycard on the desk, walked out with the same calm I had on my first day, 2 decades younger and naive enough to believe loyalty meant something. Outside, the fall air smelled sharp, smoke and rust and faint hints of rain. I didn't look back at the glass building, just kept walking. I knew they'd learn, not through rage, not through some petty revenge plot. No. They'd learn because the system I built was never theirs to begin with. It worked because I cared, because I watched every patch go in, every bypass rerouted, every silent flaw papered over during mergers, reorgs, and budget cuts. I didn't need credit. I just needed it to work. But now they wanted dashboards, consultants, a younger face in the chair. Well, let them have it. Let them live without the thread holding the whole damn web together. They called it the Monday Burnout. 2012. Whole backend lit up like a dying star. Every automation script flatlined, the inventory system went haywire, and the incident dashboard froze mid-alert like it knew it was useless. I remember standing in the server room, the whir of failing fans and panic radiating through the walls, while 3 vendors shouted conflicting commands into headsets, and the CIO kept screaming, "Just reboot it," like he was yelling at a toaster. I didn't scream. I watched, took notes, and when it became clear no patch, no firmware rollback, no vendor hotfix could stop the bleed, I built my own parachute. Thread 0 wasn't in the changelogs. It wasn't approved. It wasn't even technically allowed. But it worked. It slipped between systems like a ghost. Heartbeat pings, conditional overrides, smart failbacks. It bypassed every bottleneck and stitched together just enough uptime to keep us breathing. While the CIO stood in the hallway sweating into his tie, I deployed the damn thing from my own laptop. No permissions, no committee, just lines of code that knew where the bodies were buried. I never wrote it down, not in Confluence, not in the onboarding wiki, not even in my own notes, because it wasn't for them. It was mine. Insurance against stupidity. A thread that only I could pull and only I could not again. Over time, they stopped asking how things stayed so stable, started assuming stability was just the default, like the systems healed themselves, like uptime was natural, not engineered. They threw flowers at the CTO when we hit 1,000 days without a service-level breach, gave bonuses to product managers for seamless ops. Not once did they ask how it kept running through every M&A disaster, every warehouse reboot, every idiot consultant who nearly bricked our load balancer during Q4. The thing about infrastructure is, if you do it right, nobody notices it exists. You want it invisible. No alerts, no noise, just clean hum. That was Thread 0. And over the years, it grew smarter, more intuitive. Small modifications here and there during long weekends when I couldn't sleep, when I knew the new SaaS they onboarded was duct-taped garbage pretending to be enterprise ready. Every time something broke, I patched the perimeter, quietly, methodically, while they praised the front-end team for having such a beautiful experience. So I kept it quiet, even when they did layoffs in 17 and chopped half the back-end crew, even when they moved ops offshore and the handoff documents looked like they were written by ChatGPT on cough syrup, even when I saw the writing on the wall and knew my days were numbered the second they hired a COO with a shaved jawline and a PowerPoint addiction. Thread 0 still ran, every night, every region. It kept the old cron jobs from conflicting with the new scheduling API. It spoofed heartbeat reports when legacy nodes hiccuped. It suppressed false positives during patch rollouts to avoid a storm of fake alerts. Until Tuesday. When I flicked that switch, I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel power. I felt nothing, just subtraction. I removed the one thing they stopped valuing, like snipping a final wire and watching the bomb keep ticking, for now. It wasn't revenge. It was precision. An extraction of my presence. A clean break. Some people leave footprints when they go. I left a void. They just didn't know it yet. The next morning, the sun rose like it always does, indifferent and way too bright. I brewed my coffee a little slower, stirred in the creamer like I had all the time in the world. Because I did. First time in 2 decades, I didn't have to check error logs before the caffeine kicked in. No Slack pings. No 6:17 a.m. urgent emails flagged by some overpaid consultant trying to look essential. Just silence, stillness, peace. But that silence wasn't universal. Somewhere around 4:06 a.m., The Pacific queue hung on a nightly reconciliation loop. No error, no timeout, just a job that never ticked complete. When it finally tripped the failure threshold, it dominoed into 5 dependent triggers. One was a pricing sync. One was invoice generation for the ANZ region. And one, my favorite, was the auto-resend protocol I wrote in 2016 after the infamous fiscal rollover bug. That one crashed. Hard. By 8:12 a.m., a junior dev named Ryan, wet behind the ears and still thinking agile, meant doing push-ups between sprints, spotted the first red flag. He ran a diagnostic, thought it was a patch conflict, submitted a ticket in Jira, marked it medium priority. Then he messaged the IT lead with the kind of optimism only someone who's never lived through a real systems failure can have. Hey, looks like something hung overnight. No biggie. Probably just a patch. No biggie. By noon, the APAC partner portal had missing balance data. An alert was triggered, but auto-suppressed because, well, Thread Zero knew when alerts were noise. But Thread Zero wasn't there anymore. The noise poured in unchecked. Like static over a radio, no one remembered how to tune. The COO? Oh, he didn't even blink. Called it teething pains. Said during the stand-up that the new systems need time to calibrate post-legacy adjustments. I laughed into my coffee. That man wouldn't know legacy if it bit him in his cloud-native dashboard. A call came in from our Singapore partner. Delayed reconciliation again. Then Sydney flagged a missing invoice set. The ops team slapped together a workaround in Google Sheets and told them, just use this template until we resolve it. Google Sheets, in a $1 billion ops pipeline. I didn't reply to the texts. Didn't answer the LinkedIn message from Claire in customer success. Hey, did anything weird happen during handoff? We're seeing latency on client dashboards. Weird? No, Claire, not weird. Just natural. The way a body seizes when you yank out its nervous system and expect it to dance. Back at the house, I reorganized a drawer full of old hard drives, each one labeled, cataloged, tools of a former life. I moved slow, deliberate. I didn't need to refresh the dashboards. I knew what they were seeing. A glitch here, a timeout there. Just enough friction to spark annoyance. Not chaos? Not yet. Systems don't fail like glass. They fail like wool. One thread snags, then another. By the time you feel the draft, the whole blanket's unraveling. They were still calling it bugs, still thinking someone would clean it up before clients noticed. And me? I watched the horizon like a woman who's seen the storm form 1,000 times. Calm, silent, unreadable. Because this time, I wasn't on the other end trying to stop the flood. I was just gone. And they had no idea how loud that silence was about to become. Day 3. That's always when the hairline cracks turn into spider webs. At first, it's tolerable, annoying but manageable. Then the surface tension breaks, and everyone scrambles like they can duct tape digital glass back together. At 9:47 a.m., one of the dashboards, a client-facing analytics portal that feeds directly into the enterprise procurement system, threw its first unknown exception. Not a 500 error, not a database timeout, just a nondescript middle finger from the back end. The kind of error that doesn't come with a stack trace or a fix path, just a blinking red box and a silent dare. Figure me out. By noon, 6 more dashboards were throwing the same ghost code. Internal reports, client billing views, regional forecasting models. Nobody could trace the pattern because the pattern was the protection. Thread Zero didn't just keep things up, it kept the stupid from knocking the dominoes down. With it gone, they were standing in a room of brittle glass pretending it was steel. I didn't even flinch when my phone buzzed. Someone from the East Coast sales team trying to loop me in on a call with a client who was threatening to escalate. I didn't answer. I just swiped the call away, slid my phone across the table, and returned to sorting cables. I had 5 drawers of them, labeled, coiled, half of them obsolete. Like me, apparently. The COO was still posturing, told the executive sync it was probably a patching issue, suggested clearing cache, maybe restarting the client endpoints. His voice sounded smooth on the recording. Someone forwarded me, confident, performative, like a man who thinks he can TED Talk his way out of a system crash. Meanwhile, the engineering Slack lit up like a dumpster fire. Can anyone trace the trigger? Was there a rollback on the CI/CD pipeline? Why are the service pings timing out with 204s and no headers? 204s with no headers. That was Thread Zero's version of a shrug. No error, no success, just absence. That protocol was my Mona Lisa, subtle, infuriating, unreadable to anyone who didn't understand the underlying architecture. And none of them did. Clients noticed. Oh, they noticed. One of the top-tier ones, Fortune 100, quarterly contract worth more than the COO's whole salary, sent a formal warning. Operational instability detected, considering escalation per Clause 4.2 of the SLA. Clause 4.2, that's breach territory, that's refund plus penalty, plus public apology. Legal pinged IT. IT asked DevOps. DevOps asked the interns. The interns rebooted Jenkins. Nothing changed. And me? I was sitting in sweatpants, polishing an old RAID array I built back in 2009 for fun, watching the chaos without even needing a dashboard. Because chaos leaves residue. You can smell it in the air. They thought I was just an ops lead. They never understood that I was the thread that held the legacy and the innovation together. The last human buffer between working and working until it doesn't. Now they were treating a code ghost like a bad update. They still hadn't said my name, still hadn't admitted what they'd done. But they would. Eventually, they always do. Day 5 started quiet, the way most implosions do. Just before dawn, a recurring script meant to auto-renew a top-tier logistics contract, $12 million across 6 international hubs, ran on schedule. The request went out. The system responded. Then nothing. No commit. No fallback. Just a clean, silent void. It was the kind of failure that doesn't trip alarms because technically nothing went wrong. It just didn't go. Thread Zero used to handle these kinds of events like a seasoned bartender, catch the glass mid-fall, slide a napkin under the spill, and keep pouring. But Thread Zero was gone. I'd taken the reflex with me. Now all they had was code that followed a map with no street names. By 7:00 a.m., legal was already awake. The contract hadn't auto-renewed, and the client's legal team noticed. They'd had a renewal clause timed down to the second, and the platform's delay violated the SLA by a narrow but lethal margin. At 8:12, the sales VP went nuclear, screamed through 2 floors and slammed a chair into the wall. Actual drywall damage. He'd been wooing that client for 2 years, and now they were threatening litigation. "Who the hell let this fall through?" he yelled in the war room, which someone forwarded to me via muted video clip. His tie was askew, his face beet red, his voice cracking on words like breach and compliance. They pulled audit logs, traced workflows, re-ran the process in staging. Everything looked right, but the logic tree never forked. It was like standing at a crossroad and finding neither path existed anymore. Just gravel. The compliance officer's voice, calm, brittle, cut through the noise. There's no record of the decision branch firing. It's as if the entire logic layer wasn't there. It wasn't. That part had always run inside a sealed node of thread 0. Autonomous, lean, invisible. At 10:44 a.m., the board was looped in, not in a weekly update, not in a FYI slide buried in operations reports. This was an emergency escalation. A half-dozen executives pulled from vacations and client events. The investors joined shortly after. One asked a question no one wanted to answer. How does a system that hasn't failed in 20 years suddenly forget how to renew its most profitable contract? The COO stuttered. I watched the clip. There's been some transitional turbulence post-ops realignment, some undocumented processes we're working to surface. Undocumented? The CFO snapped. You're telling me the part that just lost us $12 million was running on mystery code? The room went cold. I was 3 counties away, sipping a fresh cup of dark roast and sorting through my old terminal backups. Didn't even need to refresh Reddit. Someone from marketing posted a passive-aggressive tweet, and the client replied publicly with a gif of a dumpster fire. They were writing my story for me now. Every unanswered ticket, every missed trigger, every panicked exec pacing the hallway. Each one a sentence in a memoir they didn't know they were publishing. And still, I said nothing, because real vindication doesn't come with applause. It comes when the people who erased you start tripping over the absence, when they look for the bridge and realize they torched it for scrap. They thought I was optional. Turns out, I was operational. Day 6, the word manual started showing up in every Slack channel like a death rattle. Manual reconciliation, manual invoice batching, manual validation for end-of-day reporting. I watched it all unfold from my laptop like someone watching their old house burn down from a hilltop. No panic, just observation. It wasn't the fire that fascinated me. It was who tried to save the drapes while the foundation collapsed. The clients weren't quiet anymore. Wait times had tripled. Support tickets were flooding in with subject lines like, "Where's my data?" and "System timing out again?" And my personal favorite? Has your entire company forgotten how math works? Internally, Ops was in full-blown triage mode. They pulled in the offshore teams to do data entry. For a platform that once bragged about 99.9998% process automation. That morning, the COO ordered IT to reset the backbone protocol. Said it like he was rebooting a Netflix password. They paused, confused, asked him to clarify. I don't care what it takes, he snapped. Just bring it back online. Restart the backbone protocol, the legacy logic, all of it. The room fell silent. Then someone in DevOps, bright kid, nervous energy, probably 2 years out of college, leaned forward and said, Sir, there is no documented backbone protocol. What are you referring to? The COO pulled up a heat map the infrastructure team had been dissecting all morning. Deep in the network, tucked between 2 dead routing paths, was something strange. A node with no owner, no description, no permissions, just a label, T0R thread 0, redundant. He stared at it like it had insulted him personally. What is that? No one had an answer. Legal demanded a review of all system diagrams. There was nothing. Security ran an access audit. Blank. No user. No key. No history. That's when he lost it. He stormed out of the conference room and locked himself in his office, where the walls were thin enough for half the department to hear him yelling into his phone, voice raised, then cracking, then quiet. When he finally came out, his tie was gone, and so was the smugness. At 3:17 p.m., my phone rang, my personal line. I let it buzz, watched it, let it stop. He tried again. This time I answered. Didn't say a word, just let the silence speak first. "Is this," he asked, trailing off like he didn't know what to call me? Former colleague? Saboteur? Ghost? He cleared his throat. "We're in a situation, I think there may have been a protocol you didn't transfer over, something deeply embedded. If we could just talk, off the record, I'd really appreciate it." I let the pause stretch, long enough to remind him how he ended the last conversation we never had. Then I spoke, calm and flat. "Backbone protocol?" "Yes," he said, too fast, too eager. "Or whatever name you used internally. We're seeing a node marked T0R, can't access it. We believe you might—" I cut him off. "You mean the part you called redundant?" He didn't respond. I continued. "I don't have access either, not anymore. When I left, I left." Another pause, longer this time. "Listen," he tried again, softer now. "Name your terms, whatever your consulting rate is, whatever you need. We're open to—" I hung up. I wasn't angry. I wasn't smug. I was done. Because when someone tears out the wiring and acts shocked the lights went out, you don't walk them through the fuse box. You let them sit in the dark until they realize you were the grid. By the end of day 7, the term legacy ghost node was trending in their internal issue tracker. And the board wanted to know why their new systems genius couldn't fix a problem that didn't exist until he deleted me. The call came on the morning of day 8. Not from an assistant, not routed through legal, direct. The number on the screen didn't blink. It pulsed, like it knew it wasn't just another call. I answered, not out of curiosity, but because I already knew who it was, and because I wanted to hear it in his voice. "Hi," the CEO said, voice calm, practiced, but noticeably thinner than usual. I want to start by saying this shouldn't have happened the way it did. I didn't say anything. Silence has weight. It makes the other person carry more. I was told you were being phased out as part of the lean transformation. I trusted the process. I trusted my leadership team. Still nothing. He exhaled slowly. What I didn't realize is that we didn't understand what you actually did, and that's on me. There it was. Not an apology, exactly. Not accountability, either. Just a man realizing too late that the floorboards he ripped out weren't cosmetic. They were structural. "I've been reading the incident reports," he continued. "The T0 node, the routing anomalies, the suppressed alerts from the past decade. Apparently, none of it's in our documentation." "No," I said simply. "We've got teams trying to reverse engineer the logic. So far, all we know is that it worked, flawlessly, and then it didn't." I didn't correct him. That was enough truth for now. Then he said it. "We didn't know how critical your role really was." I smiled, just a little. "It wasn't critical," I replied. "It was invisible. That's why it worked." The line went quiet for a beat, like he was chewing on the gravity of that. Then he asked, slowly, "Would you consider helping us bring it back online? even as a consultant, whatever your terms are. There it was, the ask. The moment they come back, heads bowed, dignity in one hand, checkbook in the other. I gave him the number. Flat. No sugarcoating. $72,000 per day. Minimum 5-day retainer. Paid up front. He inhaled like he'd just been slapped with a tax bill. That's significantly more than what I'm not your employee anymore, I said evenly. I'm the one person who knows how to stop your bleeding. You don't have to accept the rate. But I'm not negotiating, not after you called me redundant. He was quiet again. Then came the pivot. We'd also be open to bringing you back full-time. Senior title, full discretion. I laughed. You want to rehire the ghost? That's cute. The laugh wasn't cruel. It wasn't bitter. It was surgical, precise. I'll give you till 5 p.m. to wire the funds, I said. After that, the rate goes up. Not because I'm greedy, because every hour your system's bleeding, your credibility's draining with it. He said he understood. He didn't, but he said it anyway. Then he asked one last question, almost like a whisper. Why didn't you document it? I paused just for a second. Because no one asked how it worked until it stopped, and by then it was already too late. I ended the call. Then I went back to the kitchen, poured myself another cup of coffee, and smiled without teeth. They thought I was gone, but now they knew what I really was. Not a line item, not a function. I was infrastructure, and they had no backups. The offer came in quietly, almost politely, an email from someone who didn't need to puff their chest or CC 10 executives to show importance. The subject line read, "Let's talk privately." The sender, the CTO of our largest client, the same one whose $12 million contract fell through the floor just days prior. I knew her, not well, but enough to respect her. Sharp, no nonsense. The kind of leader who asks the real questions when the room's too afraid to look stupid. She didn't bother with small talk, just wrote, "We've reviewed your name across 15 incident logs. Each time we were told, operations handled it. Seems operations was you. I need the truth. Did you keep it running?" I replied with one line, "Yes," quietly. She didn't flinch. 2 hours later, I was on a call with her and her legal team. No fluff, no sales pitch, just numbers, scope, expectations, authority. They didn't want a bandage. They wanted a rebuild, from scratch. Clean architecture, transparent logic. No more duct tape on top of duct tape. She said it straight. We want a system that doesn't rely on ghosts. We want it to run because it's built right. This time, with your name on it. For the first time in months, hell, maybe years, I felt something click back into place. Not pride, not power, just clarity. The contract was solid, fat, flexible. Mine, my rates, my terms, full control of design, vendor choice, security keys. It included a clause that read, "All source code authored by consultant shall retain consultant's watermark and architecture signature unless explicitly waived in writing." That wasn't vanity. That was insurance. I signed. The next day, I stood in a temporary office they'd set up, bare, quiet, mine. A new desk, 2 monitors, a whiteboard still wrapped in plastic, clean, untouched, like a blank page after years of being handed someone else's messy drafts and told to just fix it. There were no legacy bugs here, no ancient cron jobs ticking like unexploded mines, no bloated consultants with buzzwords, and no answers. Just me, and what I wanted to build. They let me choose the stack, the pipeline, the workflows. Every part of it came from necessity, not trend. No AI dashboards that couldn't sort a timestamp. No digital transformation initiatives run by people who didn't know what version control was. Just tools that worked. Tools I could explain to a junior engineer in 5 minutes without diagrams or bullshit. And it wasn't about revenge. I wasn't thinking about the COO anymore, or the board, or the laughable emails that still came in from my old company, begging for limited guidance. That chapter was sealed. Their system was failing because they let it rot from the inside. Not my job to compost the remains. This wasn't payback. This was resurrection. But this time, it was mine. My code, my structure, my name on the spine. No more invisibility. No more silence mistaken for dispensability. I didn't want applause, just stability. And I knew exactly how to build it. The boardroom was empty except for him. No assistants, no legal team, no polished comms exec whispering spin strategies into his ear. Just the COO slumped in an ergonomic chair that suddenly felt too big for him. The synthetic leather creaking under the weight of unraveling legacy and regret. The blinds were half drawn, casting fractured light across the polished table that had once hosted confident strategy sessions, now stained with silence and coffee rings. A manila folder slid in front of him. Final audit. Internal post-mortem. The kind of document no one leaks because no one wants to admit they printed it. He flipped it open, eyes darting past the buzzwords and technical jargon he used to hide behind. Then he saw it. Subject, failure source, thread 0 detected node, reference T0R access, revoked status, undocumented legacy heartbeat, operational uptime tied to non-corporate entity, irrecoverable. The COO read the lines 3 times before it clicked. They hadn't just lost a system, they'd lost the system. The quiet one. The one that never asked for resources or attention. The one he deleted with a 6-sentence email and a smug signature block. He tapped the keyboard on the terminal next to him. Locked. No prompt. Just a slow, steady pulse on the screen. Not blinking. Breathing. Like it knew he was watching. Like it remembered. He tried again. Control plus Shift plus access. Nothing. Just the node ID and a single line of text beneath it. Thread 0, removed by administrator. He sat back. The silence wasn't peaceful now. It was loud, swallowing. And the chair didn't creak this time. It groaned. In a different building, across town, I was finishing deployment. The last line of code had passed its verification check. My system, a new one, not a copy, clicked into place like a lock finding its true key. A green status light glowed steady on the dashboard. No errors. No false positives. Just alive. Not because it hid its flaws, but because it anticipated them. Built from the ashes of every lesson they refused to learn. My assistant looked over from her desk. Systems live. You want to call it something? I smiled slightly. Thread 1. She raised an eyebrow. Not 0? No, I said. 0 was for surviving. This one's for evolving. Back in the boardroom, the COO lowered his head into his hands, elbows on a table that could no longer carry the weight of the empire he'd hollowed out. And somewhere, without a sound, another client terminated their contract. Voiceover. They called me redundant. I let them test that theory.